Before I open the hearing for the Barnstable Conservation Commission, I would like to ask Angela to do a roll call for the quorum purpose.
Thanks, Tom. Tangney, present. Hearn,
Present.
Koshulik,
Present.
Lee,
Present?
Sampu,
Present.
Administrator Ed Hoops,
Present.
Staff Member Kim Kavanaugh.
Present.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Acting under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and or Chapter 237 of the Code of Town of Barnstable, the Barnstable Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, September the 2nd, 2025, at 6:30 p.m. for the applications of Delmar Rubero, Red Lily Pond Project Associations, John Dwayne and Catherine Freeman, 40X Starbuck LLC, Town of Barnstable, DPW. This hearing is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government's Access Channel. The plans and application are on file and may be reviewed by scheduling appointments by sending email requests to Ed Hoops at 230 South Street, Hyannis. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, please let the chair know if anyone is recording this hearing. Hearing none. Tonight's hearing agenda is posted on the town's website. On the agenda, next to each application is the amount owed to the Town of Barnstable for the cost of advertisement. Please send your checks to the Conservation Division at 230 South Street before the hearing. Remote participations. The Conservation Commission's public hearing will be held by remote participation as a result of an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed by the Governor on March 28, 2025, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting laws. Remote public access to this hearing shall be provided in the following manner. 1. The hearing will be televised via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via Town of Barnstable's Government's Access Channel. 2. The real-time public comment can be addressed to the Conservation Commission utilizing the Zoom link 853-6300-2661 or use the toll-free phone number 888-475-4499 as shown on the agenda. 3rd, the public can also email the comment to edwin.hoops@town.barnstable.ma.us at least 8 hours prior to the hearing. For your information, the two NOIs tonight, the first one is the 48 Starbuck LLC has request for a continuance without testimony to October the 7th. And for the Town of Barnstable, DPW has also request for a continuance to September the 9th without testimony. We have one RDA tonight. Is Delmar Rubero to remove 2 trees in the backyard and at the backyard along the edge of the fence at 120 Cobblestone Road, Barnstable, as only assessors map 316 parcel 063-001. Is Delmar with us? He is not.
Do not see them, Tom.
Should I table this or should I just continue?
If you want to table it, I will try and call him.
Why don't you try to call him and then I'll take up the NOI first.
Okay.
Let me try to take this out of order. Go to John Dwayne and Catherine Freeman, trustee, Dale Avenue Realty Trust first. This is to relocate existing dwelling outside of the conservation jurisdictions and to relocate driveway and add stepping stones and landscaping at 43 INF Avenue, Hyannis, as shown on Assessors Map 287 parcel 074. John?
Good evening, John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting, representing the applicants. I will pull up the plan for you all. This project site is about a half an acre of land in Hyannisport off of Iano Ave, across the street from the town beach and the Hyannisport Civic Association Pier and Access. The existing dwelling shown in red on this dates back to the 1800s. It kind of nicks the 100-foot buffer, and there's a wraparound porch on it that are within the 100-foot buffer, I should say. We do have land subject to coastal storm flowage that runs along basically the street line. Across the street is a coastal dune, which we are working in the buffer zones too. So a portion of the house and its porches are within the 100-foot buffer. We're picking that house up. We're relocating it further away. There's some additions and accessories to it all outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. Within the 100-foot buffer, we're taking what is the existing driveway, again, kind of shown in red here, turning that more into just a pedestrian walkway and relocating the proposed driveway towards the south end of the lot. There is a slight increase in square footage associated with that within the buffer zone. We have provided the mitigation calculations, and we've provided a mitigation planting plan, basically creating a strip along the upper side of the wall along the road, which will be a nice kind of buffer and stop any runoff from coming off the property. I think with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. Any question from the commissioner? Bill?
I don't know if it's a question or just a statement. The integrity and long-term position of the coastal dune is largely dependent on that road, the Enaw Ave. I mean, that's going to fix where the dune is. And so because of that, and I think it's kind of an unusual situation. I don't usually like to see building in a 0 to 50, but in this case, given the position of that road and its stabilizing effect, so to speak, I think that extra 100 square feet is okay. So I am good with the project.
Thank you, Bill. Angela?
Yeah, I concur with Bill, and I also want to thank John for color coding the maps that we got to show the wall. So it was well marked, and so were the maps. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Angela. Any more questions from the commissioner? None. Channel 18, any public comment on this one?
Yes, if we are able to make a public comment, is that possible at this time?
Who's this?
My name is Frank Floyd. We are the neighbors directly to the west.
Okay, go ahead. Oh,
I don't know.
Give me your address first. Kim would need your address.
Yes, sir. Our address is 160 Irving Avenue, Hyannisport, Massachusetts, 02647.
Thank you. Go ahead.
We have the property directly to the west of this property. I don't know if it's the responsibility of this commission, but I'm just wondering whether the setbacks are being honored here, specifically for the septic system, for the AC system, and maybe the standby generator. Is that the purview of this commission to ask that question?
That's more of a zoning questions rather than the conservation questions.
Okay. Then I'll take it up with them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Channel 18, any more public comment on this one? Hearing nothing from Channel 18.
You may try it again there, Tom. I think he's getting a lot of people coming in all of a sudden.
Sorry, no public comment for this one. Thank you.
Okay. But I have a motion to approve this project as to just approve the project as requested.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kushulik.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. That's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Kim, did you hear from Delma?
Yes, I just spoke to her and I sent them the link for the meeting, so they're going to try to attempt to get in now. They may not have gotten in yet. It may be another minute.
She's just coming on now.
Yep.
Let me try to wait for this RDA first.
You should have her, Tom.
What? Channel 18, what did you say?
So she's with us. If you want to invite Miss Ribeiro to unmute.
Yeah, Ms. Ribeiro, can you unmute yourself? Oh, I can see you now. I can see you now. Let me start again. Just let me read that project's scope. Delma Ribeiro to remove 2 trees in the backyard along the edge of the fence at 120 Cobble Road, Barnstable, as shown on the assessors map 316 parcel 062-001. This is an after the fact filing for the RDA. Do you want to do you want to talk about your project, or you just want to take questions? Margaret, we cannot hear you.
You're muted.
Have her turn up her volume. Sometimes that clicks the mute off.
Right.
No, she's not muted. I think we had an issue like this last time.
Hi, Margaret, can you speak?
Could she maybe call in on the phone?
Margaret, can you call in? Use the toll-free phone number.
Yes, she's doing that now.
Thank you for your patience for all the other attendants. We're waiting for this to finish on the RDA before we go on to the Red Lily Pond project.
And Tom, just sort of something I thought that you mentioned for John O'Day, that his continuance was going to be taking up early so that he could leave early. I thought you had said that at the beginning.
I mentioned that project is being continuous until October the 7th.
Right, and then we could vote on that. Does he have to be present, or?
No, we can vote on that while we're waiting. So for the the NOI for the 48 Starbucks LLC to replace existing piers and boathouse with proposed additions of a ramp float at 48 Starbucks Lane, Osterville, as shown in the assessors map 185 parcel 001. The applicant has requested for a continuance without testimony until October the 7th. Could I have a motion to continue this to October the 7th?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Hearn,
Aye.
Kosciulik,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
and Tangney, aye. That's unanimous.
Let me do the other one first too. Town of Barnstable, DBW, constructions of a new sewer pump stations with precast concrete structure, control panel, standby generator, and approximately 580 feet of 4-inch force main. Site work including utility connections, sidewalks, and paving improvements, and temporary dewatering during the below-grade constructions with treated groundwater discharge to N. Betty Ponds at 45 Mitchell's Way, maps 308, parcel 273-002, and 268 Stevens Street, Highness, maps 308, parcel 017. The applicant has requested for a continuance to September the 9th without testimony. Could I have a motion to continue this applications to September the 9th without testimony?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Hearn,
Aye.
Kosciulik,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
and Tangney, aye. That as well as unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let me go back to Margaret. We don't hear you. Did you call? Well, let's just assume that we are asking you questions and you just want to take questions and let's go with that.
And another suggestion is if she plays with her volume, that sometimes clicks that mute because it doesn't look like she's muted. It just, she's not getting any sound.
Right.
So play with her volume.
Can you turn up the volume? Try. Nope.
All right.
Ed, should I go ahead?
I would table this if she can't get through. We should table this until September 9th.
Okay. Could I have a
We'll try and figure that out.
Could I have a motion to continue the RDA Del Mero Robertos to September the 9th?
So moved.
Anyone second?
Second.
Roll call.
Hearn,
Aye.
Kashulik,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
and Tangney, aye. That's unanimous to table this to September the 9th.
Thank you, Margaret. Sorry. We have to table this to September the 9th, so you can check out the communication, make sure that you can sign in next time. Thank you.
You mean continue, not tabled.
Hi, John, you're here.
It's the matter's continued, not tabled, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
The tabled item is being continued. Thank you, John.
I love lawyers and their language. Thanks, John.
Hey, welcome.
So we're coming to the last RDA is the Red Lily Pond Project Associations to permit a vegetation management program using herbicides to manage dense growth of aquatic plants at Red Lily Ponds and Lake Elizabeth, as shown on the Assessors Map 226 and 227. Who wants to speak first, Doc?
I'll start, Mr. Chairman. Patricia Deaton. I'm the president of Red Lily Pond. I'll quickly tell you who's with us.
Okay.
Matt Ladwig, who will be doing the presentation in just a moment. Ken Wagner is here in his capacity as our lake management consultant. We have board members Doug Farquhar and Patrick Coughlin and Marie Gerardin, who have been involved in the project, and Lisa Brown, who is the chair of CCMA, which owns most of the land on the Lake Elizabeth Drive side of the ponds, who I believe would like to make a public comment at the appropriate time. So we'll turn it over to Matt, unless you would like to hear Lisa go.
Lisa, you want to say something first?
Sure. I'll just say it's really great to meet all of you as the president of the Christian Camp Meeting Association, which is the landowner here. We're in support of this conversation and of the petition that the Red Lily Pond Project Association is bringing forward to you.
Thank you. Matt?
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to try to share my screen here. All right, hopefully you are seeing a slide that says October 2024 biological assessment.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so I think the commission should at this point be pretty well informed about the state of nuisance aquatic plant growth in Lake Elizabeth and Red Lily Pond. Just a couple of weeks ago, you heard and approved an amendment requesting the allowance for the placement of additional benthic barriers to keep nuisance aquatic plant life at bay in the ponds. However, that project only covers a small portion of the ponds, less than 10%, I believe. As Doug, who's on the call tonight, mentioned in the presentation for that amendment, hen harvesting is also being used, but that's labor intensive and currently done by volunteers many of which are a little bit older. So it's pretty exhausting activity. It also is an activity that reduces biomass temporarily, but most of the plants come back soon after. Also, as Ken, who's also on the call tonight, indicated at the same hearing, both Red Lily Pond and Lake Elizabeth are suffering from very low dissolved oxygen levels in the water column. This owes to high oxygen demand in the ponds, as well as the extensive cover of the floating leaf vegetation at the surface, which basically prevents effective air exchange, making it hard for enough atmospheric oxygen to mix into the water column. So as a result, the ponds do go either hypoxic or even anoxic in the summertime, even though they're very shallow, and normally we would expect shallow ponds to be able to be fully mixed and contain good dissolved oxygen levels in the summertime. So therefore, the Red Lily Pond Project Association is looking to implement an approach that provides better extent and duration of nuisance aquatic plant control. So something to complement what has already been permitted for this project. The benthic barriers, as I mentioned, are part of the solution, but that's only ever going to reach a certain max percentage and just cover a fraction of the pond. And given the extent of vegetation in the ponds, as you can see here on the right-hand side, and I'll present in a second, there's more that can be done here. So tonight we'd like to come before you to ask for an additional tool in our toolbox for managing these two ponds, which is the use of EPA and state-registered herbicides. We selected a couple, which I'll talk about later, to manage both the floating leaf nuisance beds like the water lilies, as well as to address the incursion of non-native common reed, Phragmites, which is also entered into some localized areas of the two ponds. All right, so on the right-hand side, or it's not the right-hand side of your screen, my screen, you can see here some maps that we pulled together from mapping that we completed last year in October. So as you may know, October is not the ideal time to be doing plant mapping. Some of the plants are senescing at that point. We did try to just squeeze this in as much as we could before it got too late in the season. So what you're seeing here in terms of the densities of plants that are represented are actually probably higher. These are probably low estimates because some of the plants had already started dying back. But it will give you the general flavor of the plant cover in the two ponds. On the left here, you'll see this is a cover map for all plant species. So this is everything in the pond. The red color is the highest density. So that represents areas where there's essentially no open water. The green is the lowest density where there, aside from open water, which is represented by this light blue, and we don't really have any of it in the pond. But the green is sort of the 1 to 25% cover of these plants. Interestingly, looking at this map, you can actually see the benthic barriers standing out in some locations where they're really keeping the cover not entirely to a zero, but down to a much more manageable level. So you see this green streak right here. These are existing benthic barriers that were installed in Lake Elizabeth. So that's great to see, but it also kind of demonstrates how little of the pond is actually, or vegetation is being controlled by those benthic barriers. The two species I mentioned earlier, and there are more, but the ones of primary concern here because of the fact that they're either really extensive in the pond and at nuisance levels or non-native, are the water lilies. Here I've got the map for white water lily and red lily and Lake Elizabeth. You can see a lot of the pond is yellow, orange, red in Lake Elizabeth, and the lower portion of red lily is mostly yellow to orange. So these are where we have the higher density growths of white water lily. Thankfully, a common reed has not really invaded the pond proper itself too much, but we are starting to get some incursion along the boundary of the western boundary of Red Lily Pond here, a little bit of a green streak. And then up near the, close to the access location at the northern end of Lake Elizabeth, we also have some additional growth of Phragmites that's actually coming out into the lake. So, we definitely see that as a problem. So, what are we going to do about that? Again, here's the reference for all plants, just so you can see what the density of plants is like in the pond. And here's what we're thinking in terms of the potential herbicide control areas. This map on the right shows areas that are blank, or areas that we're not planning on treating right now. Some of these gaps account for the existing benthic barriers as well as the ones that the commission approved during the last hearing. So that's why we have these strange shapes with the really sharp angles, because those are the areas where benthic barriers are planned for installation in the future as well. And we also have some gaps in areas that are deeper in the ponds where the beds are of lower density right now, and we don't anticipate the need immediately to treat those areas. So we have kind of this hodgepodge, this matrix of treatment areas and non-treatment areas. So we're not just blanketing the entirety of either of the ponds with herbicide control at this point. So these areas in blue really are kind of the areas that we anticipate will be targeted. They tend to be areas of higher density growth, or in the case of Phragmites, where the common reed is actually occurring. So I think, our goal is, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, is not to eliminate all aquatic plant growth in the ponds. We're really just trying to prevent the incursion of common reed and cut back on the extent and density of the other species that are posing the primary nuisance. This, in addition to the other actions that are already being undertaken, should help improve dissolved oxygen concentrations in the ponds, particularly during the summertime when they're extra critical. The two herbicides that we're proposing to be included in the program here are imazamox, typically sold under the trade name Clearcast, and the other one is glyphosate, but just the formulations that are designated for aquatic use, and those would be trade names such as Rodeo and AquaPro. One thing to note is that the ponds have been identified by DMF for a long time as diadromous fish spawning habitat. So before we filed this NOI, we did have initial consultations with DMF about the use of herbicides to control these target species. And DMF had no particular special concerns about these ponds, as long as we followed their published guidance. And so that DMF guidance basically allows for treatment of up to 50% of a water body. However, it is also subject to time of year restrictions, and I'll go into those a little bit before we get to the end of this presentation. But our plan would be to treat in a 2 to 3 part process. So the first application would be a treatment of a portion of the aquatic plant beds, particularly the lilies, but not the entirety of them in that first application. The application has to happen during a decent stretch of dry weather so that the product is applied to dry leaf surfaces. If there's any rain or anything like that, or the leaves get wet from the boat going back and forth, it really won't, the plants won't take up the herbicide the way that they need to be effective. So we're actually anticipating there will be a second application that's necessary to clean up the areas that were either inaccessible during the first treatment or where the treatment vessel had passed through to be able to access some of these beds and ended up wetting the leaves. And that would probably occur a couple of weeks after the first application. And then potentially, if needed, we might have a third application that would just be specific to common reed. That particular species benefits from a later treatment than the others. And so if we were not treating concurrently with the other species, we would come back for a third application just for the common reed beds later in the year. Again, that will depend on timing, whether we need to do that or not. So this treatment in stages, combined with the systemic nature of the herbicides that we're proposing to use, means that plant dieback should be more gradual and spread out over time. But what we don't want to do is just treat all the plants, have them all die at the same time, and put additional oxygen demand on the pond. What we want to do is try to find a nice balance where the plants are being controlled, and we're doing it in a controlled manner, that simultaneously also opens up the water column to better air exchange and allows more of that dissolved oxygen to naturally get back into the pond waters. So going back to DMF's guidance, they do recommend time of year restrictions, which we're essentially proposing to honor. So the time of year restrictions are in place from March 15th to June 30th, and then again from September 1st to November 15th. And that's again to protect sensitive life stages of diadromous fish species. So the program as we currently envision it can be implemented successfully between July 1st and August 31st. For common reed, where we just have a few small beds, it would be nice to have additional flexibility to do some spot treatments in September. So a little bit of an incursion into the time of year restriction if we can. Since Phragmites stands above the water surface so much, we think that can be safely done without risk of substantial drip of the herbicides into the water. So we're hoping we can be able to do that, just because September is a little bit better time to treat the common reed or Phragmites than the summertime is. Also, to be protective, we've developed a pretty robust water quality monitoring program that's consistent with DMF guidance. So we've actually even adopted some of the same exact monitoring locations that they used when they visited the ponds in the past. And that monitoring program will consist of a pre-treatment event and up to 6 post-treatment events. Those events would measure water quality, including dissolved oxygen, temperature, pH, and turbidity. If we can get it, Secchi disc as well, but we might hit the bottom. So that's one thing we can use there. And then also herbicide residue sampling, just to see what we applied and where it ends up. Is it still detectable in the water? And that goes on for, again, like I said, 6 post-treatment events. So ultimately, I think just to kind of wrap this up, what we're asking for is just to be able to add herbicides into our management toolbox for these 2 ponds, really to complement what's already being done with the benthic barriers and the harvesting, and to allow for a more sustainable control measure so that we can get hopefully multi-season control of some of these beds and not have to be back out there every year hand pulling. Between the benthic barriers and the herbicides, I think we can have a successful control program here. So that's the conclusion of my presentation.
Okay. Before I go to the commissions, I have a couple of simple questions for you. Number one, is there a dosage limit on those herbicides?
There are label restrictions, yes.
Okay, so it's
and those will be followed by the treatment applicator. So in addition to this, as you're probably aware, the treatment applicator will actually have to go and get a license to apply for Mass DEP. So
okay, will you or Ken be the consultant on this project?
That's a good question. I don't know how to answer that one.
Because at the
Patricia?
Because at the end of this hearing stuff, we need to put in some conditions. Whether you are the consultant, I have to put that onto the special conditions, or Ken. So you guys can decide in a few minutes when we're going through the questions. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Question from the commissioner. Pete.
Okay, yeah, I have several. We'll see what I can get through to start with. So you mentioned glyphosate for your Phragmites. I'm presuming that that's a clip-in drip by a licensed applicator?
It can be applied that way.
How else would you have done it? Because almost always, that's what we see being proposed to us here.
Yeah, I think the only thing I was going to mention is that imazamox is also another tool that does have some action on Phragmites. So what we use at any given point, it will kind of depend on what we're seeing in terms of the response of the plant. But you're right, that's a good way to apply it.
Well, and in fact, I think that's the ecologically safest way to try again to minimize the application of herbicides to an ecosystem. Am I correct on that?
Well,
Yes.
for that particular species, yeah.
Okay, second thing. Again, I think you did say glyphosate. Isn't that the compound that's in Roundup?
Yes.
Isn't there health concerns associated with Roundup and agricultural workers? I thought California's done some studies, and there's a concern for cancer. Again, I'm reaching here, but it's somewhere in back of my memory. I thought that there's been a raised concern for Roundup, and it's got glyphosate.
Yeah, actually, Massachusetts just commissioned a big study that was completed in 2024. It did a literature review of glyphosate and sort of the state of the science, what we know, and essentially the overall conclusions were that glyphosate, there's really no reason at this point to stop using it. The concerns, I think, are there from a perspective of people who are exposed to large amounts of glyphosate over longer periods of time. But the actual, you can read the details of the report, but essentially they did a pretty thorough literature review and found that there's really no critical reason to stop, to not allow it to be used at this point.
Has California made that same determination? Again, I'm trying to get best available understanding on this.
I'm not familiar enough with what's going on in California, and since the project is in Massachusetts, I think that's probably the most relevant guidance. But
well, no, actually, I sometimes look to California as a leader in environmental understanding, management, and science.
Yeah, understood. And I don't know enough about that, but again, that's sort of sounds like what you're referring to is health concerns for people who were exposed to the.
I'm familiar with it. Anyway, with legal.
Is someone else contributing to this discussion? Ken, is that you?
Oh, Ken.
Just keep it between Pete and Matt.
Okay. So again, just in the back of my mind, that was a worry. Thank you, Matt. The other question I've got, again, a number of them. You say that DMF and for diadromous fish habitat has allowed, under certain circumstances, up to 50% of a water body to be treated for vegetation that is undesirable. Is that true?
That's correct. That's the maximum that they allow, yes.
Right. So what I'm going to do right here is I was looking at your maps and what's presented here in the application. It looks like, I would potentially consider that you have sub-basins here within the Lake Elizabeth and Red Lily Pond. Is that something that seems like a reasonable thing? You say we have depth in some areas, we have really shallow in other areas, and you've got the very tight constriction in the middle, right above Lake Elizabeth. Do we have sub-basins here?
Well, there's a physical delineation between the two basins.
Right. Okay,
I think for the purposes, I think the reason they're a great pond is because they were originally one water body, but obviously they've been split into two.
Right. But okay, so for this up to 50% that's treatable, is that when you take all three of these water bodies and that 50%, it comes in at less than that, or is it for each sub-basin or each narrow, constricted, somewhat limited exchange? Do we have less than 50% application in all three of these subsections?
Well, I guess I think I would also like to clarify that DMF's restrictions are specific to per year. So you can treat less than 50% of a pond in any given year and essentially get around to areas that weren't treated in prior years, if that makes sense.
Okay, but again, except perhaps for the white, I think the yellow lily is a native species and the white one is not, correct?
No, white water lily is native.
Oh, excellent.
It grows at nuisance levels in these ponds.
So we have in front of us, not so much in freshwater water bodies, but certainly within our jurisdiction in marshes and bordering vegetated wetland. We deal with nuisance stuff all the time. And certainly if it's an exotic or if it's greatly harming native species, then, you know, we will listen to the control of stuff, but nuisance it's not exotic. You have here a shallow water body, which is extraordinarily great habitat for these emergent, or actually these lily pads and some emergence. And I have a little bit of a concern about a eventual large-scale alteration of this habitat, way beyond the benthic barriers, to make this so that watercraft can go all over. I mean, it's a pond that perhaps isn't something that is conducive for all water sheet travel in a canoe or a paddle boat. So, you know, I'm a little worried about sort of large scale or large extent, I should say, large extent alteration of an ecosystem that's generally pretty much native natural habitat. At this point, I will save any further questions and let my other commissioners ask stuff.
Thank you, Pete. Bill?
To go back to Pete's comment about the Phragmites, we have routinely worked with people who control the Phragmites on the shore of little ponds using, and I forget, it was like a three-word thing. It was like bundle, cut, and spray or whatever. And we routinely do that, and it seems really effective. And I have actually monitored how that is going in a wetland near me. And I can't help but think that using the Roundup / rodeo glyphosate in a bundle, what was it? Bundle cut and spray? Was that what it was, Pete?
No, it's a sponge. They sponge the top of that bundle.
Okay, but basically, you know, the first time I saw it, the Phragmites is in little bundles. They literally string them up and they're like little teepees. And I thought, what the heck is that? But wow, it really worked great. And so I would feel more comfortable if you were to do that. And as you said, you were looking for a little play in the season, you know, into the fall. And I'm personally good with that, assuming you're using the bundle, whatever, doing it that way. I think that would be a good idea. The point that Pete was kind of getting at is that you have a pond, which is, you know, it's under cultural eutrophication. It's eutrophying at a rapid rate because of inflow from septic systems and et cetera. And, you know, the ponds are kind of going their way in a natural, not a natural, but an accelerated succession. And so in a way, you're kind of fighting back nature. And yet landowners want to have some open water. And I'm sympathetic to that. Going with the herbicides, I have a concern that you're going to potentially have fish kills because you're not removing the nutrients and you're going to have a whole lot of dead vegetation on the bottom that's going to, you know, decompose. But then I'm thinking, because of this presentation, and I didn't see this in your application, you're going after particularly the water lilies. And I'm thinking the water lilies are going to be a significant factor that is causing the low DO. You already have low DO. As Dr. Wagner pointed out, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. And now you're exacerbating that. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, if you end up putting in the herbicides, might you not have a fish kill, a significant one? You had a picture of a little boy with a nice bass caught, I want to say July 2025. And I hate to think of the potential fish kill that might happen if you go forward. I'm very glad you're going for the roughly 50%. And it is kind of like that. Pete, you were thinking there's 3 basins. I'm looking at the picture on the left, and it is Readily Pond, which I believe is the northern one. You know, it's one long pond that they're basically spraying or proposing to spray about 50% of it. I think for monitoring, I think a monitoring for a fish kill is very important. I don't think that you want to be, you know, you're going to do some water quality monitoring, you know, a few times, but a fish kill is going to occur, and I'm not exactly sure when. I mean, is it 3 days? Is it 10 days? Is it 3 weeks after you do this when the stuff starts to rot? I'm not sure, but I do believe that you all have to be mindful of the potential for a fish kill and be open enough to report it, because if that's what's happening, I don't think this should be a long-term plan. If you provide some kind of, almost a daily or every couple of days, but because you know you might end up having birds picking off all the dead fish coming up, and they may disappear in a matter of a day or two. If you have some on the ground people watching who pledge honesty that they're going to go around, they're going to look for it, and they're going to report, yes, there wasn't one, or there was, and what the extent of it was, and maybe take pictures. I can go with this plan, but I am really concerned about a potential fish kill. You mentioned, I can't remember your name looking at the pictures, and the fellow who was just speaking, Matt was talking about, you know, trying to spread the dose out and being careful not to have the dissolved oxygen get too low. And I'm thinking that's a funny balance. And how often do you do it? And I think you're playing with something that may not be so simple. So I'm willing to go along with this, but I really want to have monitor. I mean, I'm not going to go along with it unless you have some pretty rigorous, constant monitoring for this period, because I think you could have a fish kill. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe Ken Wagner can speak to that. Getting rid of the lilies may actually help oxygenate it. I get that. But still, it's shallow and it's very low DO. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Let me go to Ken Wagner first. Ken?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Great. I've had an unstable connection and gotten bounced out twice, but I'm here. That's why I killed the video. That often is an issue. Okay, you're mixing a number of different things here, but they are all good issues. Let me backtrack for a moment to the formulations. Do not confuse rodeo with Roundup. Just because they have glyphosate in them, that's not the deal. The primary toxicity in Roundup comes from the additives, not the glyphosate. Glyphosate has not been found to be a major issue by itself. Also, don't confuse mass agricultural applications on genetically modified crops and so on with a fairly infrequent use in aquatic systems to get invasives or dense natives under control. Not at all the same thing. And finally, anyone with legal training knows that because a jury awarded someone something in a toxic case doesn't mean it was actually the problem. That entire thing with Roundup is really farcical, but that's not our issue tonight. This is a perfectly reasonable way to go about it. It's very targeted. The clip and drip on Phragmites is reasonable because it's not a big area yet. If you wait very long and let it get big, you're going to have to do a general spray application because it's just not practical to do clip and drip. On the water lilies, yeah, it's a wipe or a close spray and you're just hitting exact areas. It's fairly precise. Okay, moving to that, the fish kill question is a good one. If we didn't have low oxygen, I would say it was extremely unlikely. In an evaluation of 20 years of fish kills in Massachusetts, the only ones that ever came up were diquat application to dense vegetation that killed the vegetation, didn't harm the plants directly, but they got low oxygen and a resulting fish kill. Now, this is glyphosate. It's a little different. It's targeted plants. It's not all of them, but it is a correct concern, particularly if we have low oxygen, which we have had. Now, it isn't being consistently monitored. I think it would be a reasonable condition that the oxygen was below 5 milligrams per liter, the state standard, that the treatment would not go forward at that time. You want enough oxygen in the water that when you do the treatment, you know you're not going to suck out what's left and stress the fish. That's a fair concern. If we can get the lilies out of the way, you will get higher oxygen. It won't get rid of all the demand. And in fact, killing the lilies will increase the demand temporarily. But the ability of the atmosphere to get oxygen into the water will be greatly increased over what we have. As I spoke to a couple of weeks ago, a similar situation in a lake in Cambridge is having the exact same issue. We're not going to treat that until next year, and it probably won't even be a chemical treatment. They're going to probably harvest it. It's smaller. But the point is that it is a concern. It is worth monitoring and watching. The time of year restriction will not allow us to do it when the alewife are in there. So you really just have to worry about the bass and the sunfish that would be in there at the time. And I think that picking the right time when you can get at the plants in an incremental manner when the oxygen isn't so low is a reasonable way to go.
So Ken, can I confirm that you just mentioned about should not be applied when the oxygen is less than 5?
Well, the state standard for oxygen is 5. Not that the state standard is a hard and fast number all the time, but if you have 5 milligrams per liter and you do a treatment of even half of the lake, and you're not planning to do it all in one shot, it's very unlikely the oxygen would drop to a dangerous level. If it's down at like 2 or 3, like we were seeing a couple of weeks ago, that would worry me too. So we need to know that the oxygen is okay before the treatment, and then you would indeed monitor the oxygen and look for stressed organisms after the treatment. That's a perfectly reasonable condition.
Thank you, Kent. Angela?
Yes, thank you, Tom. I just had a quick question. I'm understanding what you're doing and when you want to do it, but I'm not sure I understood or heard who will be handling the herbicide in the application. We have not contracted with a licensed person yet? Is that part of this? Did I miss it in the reading?
That was not included. I don't know if anybody from Red Lily Pond Project wants to speak to that.
Yeah, I can address this actually. This is Patrick Coughlin. I'm the secretary of the Red Lily Pond Board. We have been in conversations with Water and Wetlands, who has extensive use in application. They're professionals in doing this throughout the state of Massachusetts. And while they haven't been officially contracted yet, we were waiting to get approval here from the Conservation Board before we went forward with contracting with them. But they are the professional organization that we're thinking of hiring to apply the herbicides.
And they've done work on Cape Cod before?
Absolutely. Yes, they have.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for information, Angela, there will be one conditions about the licensed herbicide applicator and their license to be submitted to the conservation staff for review and approval.
With the approval of this NOI. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah. John?
Thank you, Tom. Peter Stampouf, you know over the years we've dealt with these kinds of applications before where the request is for herbicide treatment, and we've always been a little bit scared of them because of the downside risks of herbicide application. And it leads me as a layman to simply ask the experts the question, what are the options available to solve the problem without using herbicide? What options are available to you? That's the first question. Second question is, how often would you be coming back in 3 years and asking to continue this? What's the end point for use of herbicide? So my first question is, give me the options to herbicide treatment to solve the problem.
I'd like to ask Doug Farquhar to respond for the first question, please.
Sure, Doug.
Yeah, and and I'd like to actually hear from Ken about that. I mean, one of the options is to dredge the pond, drain it and take out all the plants, and then you're going to be starting at ground zero. That's not a great option in terms of the wildlife habitat, of course.
No.
The other options are the benthic barrier, which prevents the regrowth of macrophytes that we've cut. But that is limited. And I think in our last hearing where we got the order of conditions approved to place more benthic barriers, Mr. Sampu had some very good questions about that, and Ken was able to answer that. But there's a reason that they say you can only do it in 10% of the pond. And then the final option is that I'm aware of, at least, is the manual cutting. And manual cutting was last performed in Lake Elizabeth only in about 2010, I think, 2011.
Do you mean mechanical cutting, Doug?
Yeah,
yes, mechanical cutting. Thank you, Patricia. The barge came in, but then the dam failed, and there's not sufficient water to bring a barge in again to do mechanical cutting. So we're limited to manual cutting, and as I think both Matt and Ken have expressed, and I certainly have expressed it as well, because I'm the project director on those, and I've gone back and had to cut the plants in the same place the next year because they do grow back. They don't grow back as densely, but those are the options I'm aware of, and maybe now I should turn it over to Ken. And
yes, that would be good. Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's one other option that we haven't pursued, which is hydro raking. That's basically a York rake on pontoons that would tear out the water lilies and the root masses. It makes a pretty turbid mess out of the lake and would actually be way more impact on oxygen than the other stuff. So we didn't feel that was appropriate. It's also very, very expensive. And they do still grow back. To be fair, the herbicide idea originally was mine. I am not a fan of herbicides, but I believe in using the right tool for the right job. I don't like chainsaws, but I don't cut up all my wood with the buck saw. I don't like motorboats. I don't like motors, but I don't go do sampling 2,000-acre lakes in a kayak. So you use the right tool for the right job. This is not intended to be a long-term thing. If it means that every year you've got to come back and treat, they're going to go in other directions. We don't want to be doing this over and over. But it's to get the thing under control in the first place and knock it back a bit and see what we get for it. So in that regard, it is a reasonable approach. But all the other options actually have been tried or evaluated first. This is the last option we're trying.
And what a follow-up question to that, Ken? What is the downside risk to both the aquatic life, the fish, as well as, and there was some mention about potential impact on somebody who's humans that are using the lakes at that time. Well, what are the downside risks of this herbicide treatment that you are asking for?
Ken?
He may
be. We may have lost him. He's starting to fade out.
Yeah.
Can someone else answer that question?
I can certainly try to speak to that. I don't know if I'll cover all the portions of your question, John.
With the herbicide?
Oh, yeah, there he is. Okay.
I'll get bits and pieces, Anna.
Go ahead, Ken.
I think we lost him again. He'll come back in.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes, Ken.
I'm back. I'm on a lake in Maine where I'm teaching an aquatic plant taxonomy course. So I just finished day one and I'm sort of middle of nowhere. I think I was asked what the downsides were of the herb.
We're losing you again.
Correct?
Yeah, Ken, the question was, what are the downside risks of the herbicide program you're proposing? Oh boy, we're losing him.
Matt, is it something? Oh, here comes. Maybe he's on again. Matt, is this something you can address to some degree?
I'm getting still a lot of breakup. Was it downsides of herbicides?
You break it up, Ken.
I can go ahead and speak to this, and then I guess if Ken does come back and has anything to add, you can certainly do that. As far as the human health concerns, there's really no issues as far as treating the pond. It's not there's no recreational use restrictions on the pond after that, so people can continue to use the pond the way that they are. There are irrigation restrictions on some of these. Just because you wouldn't want to take water out of the pond that was just treated with an herbicide and put it on your tomatoes. Wouldn't be great for your tomatoes. And those, there's a certain number of days that are recommended to let pass before using it for irrigation purposes. But as far as recreational, no, there's no restrictions. And then I think we kind of covered the main concerns about the ecological effects, and really the big one is the DO. There's certainly plenty of water lilies in the pond. They're not going to go away forever. We're not going to have a pond without any plants. They'll be able to reproduce and come back just fine. So there'll always be habitat there. And I think what we're trying to do is just open up more open water habitat, improve, again, the dissolved oxygen levels. So you almost have to get worse a little bit here to get better. You have to kind of knock back some of the plant growth, which may cause some temporary impacts on dissolved oxygen, but to help accomplish the longer-term goal of improving your dissolved oxygen levels in the pond. And we're trying to do it in a way that is going to be minimally impactful on that, so we're spreading out the impact. So it's not all happening at once, and we're using herbicides that are systemic. They're not the contact herbicides, as Ken mentioned, like dicot, which is where you get most of your fish kills associated with that product. So,
Matt, follow-up question that I had: do you see an endpoint in this?
Well, I mean, I think we're throwing a lot of different things at the pond. And certainly the benthic barriers, I think, are a really great demonstration of how you can make progress. Those seem to be working very well. The only thing that really limits them is we can't put them across the entire bottom of the pond. So this is another tool that we have. I don't think the problem is ever going to go away entirely. It's always going to be something that needs to be managed. But the whole goal of using the herbicides is you take enough of the problem away that it becomes easier to manage those smaller areas again going forward. So you're not carrying the same burden forever of trying to manage larger areas.
I'm sorry, sir. So you could see if, in fact, after 3 years, there has been a significant reduction, but it's still happening, then we should not expect to come back and say we want to continue herbicide, but at that point, there are viable options to continue to control the growth without herbicide. Is that what I think you're saying?
I think that's mostly what I'm saying. It's hard to know exactly what situation we'll be in 3 years. The goal would be, yes, we want to be able to not have to go back out there and use herbicides all the time, or even most of the time. And so the idea is you get a control over a large enough area that then you can sort of defend the perimeter a little bit more easily. I don't know if it's realistic to say that herbicides would never need to be used again, just because, there's enough plants in the pond that plants could have some good years and kind of regain control of the pond at some point in the future. But it certainly helps your chances of keeping things at bay and being able to use more minimally impactful approaches to do that.
Pete, final comment, Tom, and then I'll stop talking. But Pete, Sampo, you remember in earlier ones involving herbicide treatment, we always had this fear of, well, when is it going to come to an end, or is it going to be a lifetime of herbicide treatment? And Pete, do you have any memory of?
Yeah, so I don't remember. So John, that is the excellent point. We as a commission are very hesitant to get locked into a long-term application of herbicides to an environment. So yeah, I completely agree with you, John. If this can be knocked down, so that the other forms can manage it, then something that I could accept. But I'm not going to essentially think that this is a great idea if it has to be done time and again, time and again, time and again, and or if there's not monitoring, as Dr. Hearn mentioned, with respect to fish kills. Again, having the application limited to 5 milligrams per liter of dissolved oxygen or higher is a reasonable safety measure to limit the oxygen demand of the dying vegetation that's perceived the herbicide. So that is something that is a good idea. That limit, that condition, it has to be more than 5 milligrams per liter for the application, and monitoring just in case, as Dr. Hernan mentioned. So yeah, John, I think that is something I completely agree with you, and what we've done in the past for decades. We are hesitant in being wedded to a inevitable long-term herbicide application. Thank you.
Maybe follow-up point then, maybe commissioners, we ought to consider some kind of special condition if we approve this that says part of the order conditions would indicate that in fact this order will not be subject to extensions, because we normally grant a 3-year extension without much conversation, but some kind of notation that says because of the use of herbicides, the commission would not consider an extension of this matter, but would require a new filing. Something like that, just as a protection. I'm just throwing out that thought off the top of my head.
Thank you, John. I mean, that could be it. I mean, that could be a conditions, because it just puts some more weight on that condition so that they have to come back with more reasonings to justify their applications on the new filing. Ken, you're back.
Yeah, I am. Sorry. I apologize. The connection's pretty rough up here. Only back on the downside of herbicides, I think Matt covered, which can be handled in the conditions. The other one that probably didn't come up, at least in the time I was able to be on, when you kill the water lily, sometimes the root mass starts to decay and floats up and creates floating islands. Now that actually constitutes habitat, but it's not very good when it's under a benthic barrier, and you wouldn't want them all over the place. So doing this gradually makes sense. What John and Pete are saying is logical. I don't know that you need to say you can't have an extension right from the start, but the point is it needs to be evaluated after a 3-year period. You've had your chance to make this work. How did it go? Convince us that this is appropriate to continue, or have you reached your goal now and we're good to go? That's really what it comes down to. I don't think anybody here is excited about consistently using herbicides out there. It's not what anybody really wants. Right. It's just we're down to what other tools do we have to get this under control. Let them try it in a reasoned and stepwise manner, see what they can get from it, and then we can back off and say, okay, where does that leave us, and come back with a better plan if we need one.
That makes sense, Ken. Thank you.
Tom, can I ask Ken a question before he disappears?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll try not to disappear.
Ken, I've got like 5 things I want to say when my time comes up, but quickly before you disappear. If you get rid of a lot of the plants, is there any chance that what might replace it would be cyanobacteria? Like a major bloom?
There is a small probability in a shallow lake like this. However, the nutrient levels are really very low. Now, obviously, you kill the plants, there's going to be some nutrients released.
Yeah.
But your water quality, actually the nitrogen and the phosphorus is low. That is not conducive to cyanobacteria blooms. But so I'm not really worried about cyanobacteria.
But if you end up killing off...
I'd be more worried about green algae, filamentous green algae mats.
Okay. Thanks. I have other questions, Tom, but if you want to go to somebody else, I'm in queue.
Okay, before I go there, I just want to double check with the commission. I'm hearing that, for the Phlagmites, we want to use the cut and drip methods that we normally approve, but when it comes to the other plants, we can apply for herbicide. Am I correct?
Yes, that's my suggestion.
I would agree with that.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Who's next?
Hey, Tom. Tom, can I ask you a question, please?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. All three of these water bodies are separate, correct? There's nothing contiguous between the three?
There are 2 water bodies, not 3, and there is
It's the Red Lily Pond
in St. Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
Okay.
And there is a conduit, a culvert between the two that is a very small culvert that's under the causeway there.
Yeah.
It drains only in one direction.
I see. Is there a logic? Is there any logic to phasing one of these water bodies with a 1 to 2 year plan, so you're not attacking such a large portion here?
If I might answer that, and thank you, Tom. I should have mentioned this earlier. The other way to control the vegetation in the pond is to raise the water level.
Yeah,
the water, one of the.
Thank you. That's what I was going to talk about. No, you go ahead. No.
And as you may remember, the concrete dam there broke about 20 years ago. The wooden dam that they used to replace it broke about 7 years ago. The water level has dropped precipitously. We have an approved federal grant, as well as a grant from the town of Barnstable, that will replace the dam with a pool and boulder fish ladder concept, and will raise the water level an estimated 9 inches. That's currently in the design phase. We'll also replace all the culverts so that the fish passage is better in the 3 different places where there are culverts. So if we use what we need to do, though, is make sure that we still got a lake when the thing finally gets built. And that's why we're taking all these temporary measures, which include the manual harvesting and the herbicide. But it would be certainly our hope that once we get this under control, and once the fish ladder is built with it raising the water quality, the water level, that it will impede the growth of the vegetation sufficiently that we can then address it either with manual harvesting or mechanical harvesting and not have to use herbicides repeatedly. I hope that's helpful.
And I would just like to add that project is being managed by Town of Barnstable DPW, which is handling it, and they're managing it. They're in close contact with us as it progresses, and anticipates that it may be done as early as 2026.
Would that be under Amber?
Yes, it is under Amber. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Tom, I'm not sure that answers my question.
Go ahead and ask your question, Chuck.
The phasing, the inch, is there any sense to phasing, one of the 2 water bodies, where instead of looking at in defense of Bill's claim with the potential fish kill, to examine, just take one of the 2 bodies and approve that with all the conditions that are being spoken about tonight, as opposed to, the entire piece. So it's a large area.
May I address that, Mr. Lee?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thanks.
I can make my comment after you mentioned it.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So we would really resist that because I think as Ken has explained, the possibility of a fish kill is very, very remote, especially if the level of the oxygen is as high as we've been talking, as setting a minimum for the application to occur. And of course, we'd be willing to live with that as a condition. But my fear is we are losing the battle here with all that we're doing. And this is what we need to hold on to the lakes until we can get the fish ladders built. I just don't think it's going to be happening. We can do all the monitoring that's required, but to sort of sacrifice one of the lakes so that we can try this out in the other lakes, we're already a year behind. I get very nervous that we're just not going to be able to control what we've got left. And application of the herbicides to more plants later is going to be worse than application of herbicides to less plants now.
So I just want to chime in, Jeff. You know, as we go along on the presentations, if correct me if I'm wrong, you know, in that descriptions that Matt was providing, at the maximum we can only apply at 50% at a time. So over time, they cannot do the whole pond, and it's doing a couple of times applications. And sometimes they may want to go back to apply for the previous applied area for the second control. So that is up to the applicants to decide which part of the pond would be applied with the herbicides. And secondly, I mean, without knowing anything in terms of the scheduling, without knowing what the fish ladder stuff, even though it's a 2026 project, but I think by the time you said and done, you are looking at 20 and 27 for this order to go through 3 years. So I think after that 3 years, it would be a good, just like what we talk about, with a good condition coming back and reapply and look at the whole picture of the whole Red Lily Pond and the Lake Elizabeth and the vegetation management plans, and depending on what tool are best to suit that. That's I'm guessing right now. I'm looking at what I'm understanding it. Ed, I want to give it back to you. Do you have any comment on this?
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, so I think we've covered a lot of the points that I've had. I do want to make sure that we include the project narrative and the biological assessment as part of the official plans of approved plans of record. So we have that to rely on as well as the figures that are within that biological assessment. You know, I do have you down for extensive monitoring. We can, assuming the commission wants to continue to add the fish kill, cut and drip for Phragmites, and I would agree with that, especially so if you're going to be doing that in September, inside the time of year restriction. And it will also add the no treatment under with dissolved oxygen under 5 parts per million.
Right.
The only other question I have: do you have any further comments from DMF, either to Matt or well, I'll address it to Matt since you were the one who made the original presentation here.
Yeah, I think what we've gotten from DMF in writing so far is in the application. I did check again before this hearing, and I don't have anything additional from them at this point.
Okay. Let me go back and ask Patricia, since you're the president, who is the consultant on this project? Is it Matt and Ken, both?
That's a good way to put it. Yes, we would anticipate that Ken and Matt would both be working on this project, and probably Matt in the project manager aspect and working with the firm that we hired to do the application, and Ken is the overall consultant.
Okay. Would Matt be the TLC? Would that be the company that would TLC be the company that would register the order of conditions?
That's a good question. We usually register the order of conditions ourselves. Does it need to? Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure someone is doing it.
Yeah, we do it, and we would be. I think that would be consistent with how we've done the others.
Okay. Good. Any more questions from the commissioner?
I do.
Hi, Bill.
Yeah, I'm still concerned about what kind of fish kill monitoring might be done. You have a window of July 1 to August 31. And as far as I know, the month of July around here is pretty hot. I mean, hot, you know it. We've gone through it summer after summer. And it doesn't really cool down. Well, this year it did pretty well in mid-August. But And a fish kill could potentially happen when the vegetation is dead, and I'm not sure how long that exactly takes. So if you are lucky enough to find that the DO is 5.2 or whatever in the first couple of weeks of July, and you go, oh, good, let's do it now. You know, I'm not, you know, you could easily have a fish kill that could happen a month later. And I'm not comfortable that you are, you know, what we don't have a plan here for how that works. And I think you guys are a bunch of honorable people up there on the Hill. And I just feel like there should be some kind of a plan where people go on a daily or every other day and circle around and look for, and not like, oh, I found this one stupid fish. Well, you can record that, but that's like nothing. But fish kills, you know what a fish kill looks like. You got like 20, 30, 50, or 2,000 fish over in a bay or what have you. And I think that needs to be monitored. And it needs to be monitored consistently, probably throughout the July, August period, well, whenever you do it, up until whatever, mid-September. And I hope that you will, and that Tom, somehow we can work out some kind of eyeballs on what happens in that 2.5 months. Because that, you heard Ken. Ken's like, well, yeah, good point. So we really need to deal with that. I would like to, well, I never get to talk to the Conservation Commission very often in person. And water hyacinth is a problem in Mystic Lake. And we have routinely dealt with that as a problem. And it takes 10 years to try to knock it down according to the literature, blah, blah. And, we routinely have done that. Now they've kind of run the cycle. But the idea of controlling native vegetation in ponds is not something that I've come across in the last 4 years. So this is kind of an unusual thing. And I do believe that it is going to, you're going to have those nutrients, you're going to have the seed or what have you, and it's going to keep growing, I don't know, the next year or 2 years down the road. And it is a permanent thing. So therefore, I do believe we need to have a condition that just effectively puts a stop on this after 3 years, and we get a total revisit the whole thing, however that condition works out. So I do hope that we can work out some kind of a fish monitoring plan. Thank you.
I can speak to that if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
That's actually pretty typical in a lot of treatments, particularly where they think there is a risk. I mean, it really isn't a very high risk in the vast majority of lakes. And had we not seen the low oxygen we saw this year, I would have said it was a low risk here too. But I can't say that. That oxygen was scarily low this summer.
Yeah.
But it is not unusual at all for a commission simply to say that prior to the treatment, the applicant will file a monitoring plan that will, look at these things. And it's simple enough. Volunteers can do exactly what you're saying. Go out in the kayak, do a lap every day or every other day, look for distressed organisms. We do it with aluminum treatments all the time. It's a standard thing to do while it's going on and for some period afterwards. I don't think you need a month. A couple weeks is probably enough. But you watch the oxygen along with it, and you just check to look for any distressed organisms. It's pretty straightforward. All you really need is a condition that says the applicant will provide a plan prior to the treatment.
Thank you, Kent.
Or approval, right? For approval.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
That's a good suggestion that, that we can require the applicant to provide a monitoring plan prior to applying the herbicides. I mean, that could at least do, let's say, for a month and see how it goes. And then if something happened, it could change that plan as well.
Yeah, Tom, I would just like to say, as the other scientist on our commission, is I completely agree with Dr. Hearn on that and everything he said. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on this? Channel 18, any public comment on this one?
Number of Red Lily Pond folks here. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add or ask at this time? Raise your virtual hand or unmute. Seeing none.
Let's try again. Any public comments? there's a lot of people attending this one. Okay. No.
I'm just going to say, I think you've heard from two of our board members and from Lisa, and Dr. Jared and Marie is the other one. Marie, if there's anything you want to say, that would be the only other public comment I'm aware of.
Okay.
No, I agree with everything that's been said, and I think the conditions will make sure that it's done in a proper way. I mean, even without the conditions, it would be done in a proper way. I mean, this community is very diligent about doing things the right way. And, you know, it's fallen on all the volunteers like Doug and other 60 to 75-year-olds to cut down those Phragmites every year. And it's very labor intensive. And this will be a method to get it under control so that we don't rely on 65-year-olds to be out there in the pond every year doing it. It'll be more reasonable to manage. So I think it's going to be a great thing for the ponds.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I see another board member's name that I didn't see earlier, Allie Turner. So I'd like to see if Allie has anything she would like to say.
Allie?
No comment, just great conversation. My first meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So let me try the conditions. If I miss anything, Ed or John, anyone can kind of chime in if I'm reading it incorrectly. So these are the conditions that we'll be voting on. Number one, Ken and Matt from TLC will be the consultant on the record. And if there is any change in the consultants, the applicant would have to provide a written notifications to the Conservation Administrator for review and approval. The applicant and the consultant should review the area to be treated with herbicides with the conservation staff prior to applying for the herbicides. Result of the pre-treatment plan survey to be filed with the conservation staff. Oh, for the record of the plan of the record will be dated July 30th, and the biological assessment data is the October 24 data set on that biological assessment report. And then the herbicide shall be applied by a Massachusetts licensed applicator, and provide the name and the herbicide applicator and a copy of their Massachusetts applicator license and the license to apply herbicides to the waters of the Commonwealth. BLPWM04 to the conservation staff for review and approval at least 10 days prior to any applications of the herbicides. For Phragmites, we only allow for the drip, cut and drip, and then for the other planting, you can use the herbicides. The Red Lily Pond and the Lake Elizabeth shall be posted by the herbicide applicator prior to the treatment in accordance with the herbicide label requirements and the license to apply herbicides to water and the Commonwealth. And then the applicant should propose a monitoring plan prior to applying for the apply for the herbicides to the staff for review and approval. And at the end of the 3 years, we should take a second look with all the annual reports before we apply. There's no extensions for this order, and it has to come back with a new NOI and with all the annual reports that we are requiring. There will be an annual report for 3 years to be submitted to the conservations and the DMF. And then there's a time of the year restrictions, March 15th to June 30th and September 1st to November the 15th. And then you cannot apply for the herbicide for less than 5 milligrams per liter of the DO. Did I miss anything else?
I have two things, Tom. Yep. One is when you're referring to the monitoring plan, how you read that off is, I think you should specifically mention monitoring for fish kill, and you could say and water quality. Yeah, specifically mention that fish kill. And the other thing is that I think the July 1 to August 31 limit basically on the open water herbicide is what, DMF is looking for, and that's good. But I am thinking that it was mentioned that for Phragmites, if they went into September for that would be okay. And given that it's off the water, I don't see that we wouldn't. Maybe we should have some further discussion, but I think allowing the Phragmites to be treated in September would be okay.
Yeah, that would be fine because it's a cut and drip. It's all limited.
That's a cut, right? But that should be like a part of the condition in terms of seasonality. The Phragmites cut and drip would be also. Is that good with Matt? I think, or Ken, or whoever.
Matt, okay.
Yeah, I think that sounds good to us.
So for the time of the year restriction is for the open water herbicides between that March 15 and June 30th, and then September 1st to 15, and then the Phragmite applications that can be in September. And then for the monitoring plan, it should include the water quality monitoring and the fish kill.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Phragmites could be done in the summer too, during that July and August, but.
Yeah. Could I have a motion to approve these projects with those conditions that I just mentioned?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abedili.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. That's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you all. This is a long discussions, but it's a first throw discussions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. And let me see here. We have two continuances. The first one is Royal Catignelli Conserve Inc. renovations of existing 3-bedroom, 1-story single-family dwelling to propose 5-bedroom, 2.5-story single-family dwelling with balcony all elevated on piles extending existing seashell driveway and landscaping improvements at 51 Halls Avenue, Hyannis, as shown on Assessors Map 323, parcel 005. This is a continuance from August the 12th and August the 19th, and we are waiting for the DEP number, and the quorum is every commissioner. And we have received the DEP number as SE3-6305. Could I have a motion to close the public hearing and authorize the staff to issue the order of conditions?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abedili.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. That's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The second continuance is 3-Base Preservation, Inc. management of approximately 90 square feet of invasive Phragmite and other sporadic state-listed invasive plants that surrounds the cranberry bog system at 946, 948, and Zero River Road, Marston's Mill, as shown in Assessors Map 045, parcel 026, 011, and 016-004. This is a continuance from August the 12th and August 19th, waiting for the DEP number, and the quorum is everyone except Bill.
Right.
And we have received the DEP number as SE3-6304. Could I have a motion to close the public hearing and authorize the staff to issue the order conditions?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abedili.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. That as well is unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have two sets of minutes, August the 12th and August the 19th.
I make a motion to accept the minutes for August 12th.
Second.
Roll call.
Abedili.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. That's unanimous. I make a motion to accept the minutes for August 19th.
Second.
Roll call.
Abedili.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. They're accepted.
Our next hearing is It's at 3 o'clock on September the 9th. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abedili.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Koshulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. That's unanimous. It's 8:04, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Good night.